The room was silent when a gentle breeze rustled through the curtains. A child's laughter echoed from somewhere outside, and in that moment, every person in the room felt the weight of their own journey press against their chest. The struggles, the doubts, the moments when giving up seemed like the only option. We've all been there, haven't we? Life has a peculiar way of testing us. Just when we think we figured it out, just when we believe we're on steady ground, something shifts. The promotion we were counting on goes to someone else. The business we poured our heart into faces an unexpected setback. The relationship we thought would last forever crumbles before our eyes. And in those moments, those dark, uncertain moments, we ask ourselves, why me? But I'm here to tell you something that might change your perspective forever. Those struggles you're facing, they're not your enemy. They're your greatest allies in disguise. Every obstacle, every setback, every moment of doubt, they're all conspiring to make you stronger than you ever imagined possible. Let me share a story with you. There was once a young man who grew up in the poorest neighborhood of his city. His family could barely afford 3 meals a day. He wore hand-me-down clothes and walked miles to school because they couldn't afford bus fare. His classmates mocked him, called him names, made him feel like he was less than nothing. But every day, he made a choice. He chose to see his struggles not as barriers, but as building blocks. He studied under streetlights when there was no electricity at home. He helped his mother sell vegetables in the market before dawn, then rushed to school, often arriving tired but determined. His teachers noticed something different about him. Not his worn-out shoes or his patched-up uniform, but the fire in his eyes. A fire that burned brighter with every challenge life threw his way. You might be wondering what happened to that young man. Today he owns one of the largest grocery store chains in his state. But here's what's interesting. When asked about his success, he doesn't talk about his achievements. Instead, he talks about those dark mornings in the market, about studying under streetlights, about the mockery he endured. Those weren't my struggles, he says. Those were my training grounds. That for a moment. What if every struggle you're facing right now is actually preparing you for something greater? What if those sleepless nights, those moments of doubt, those setbacks that feel like failures, what if they're all part of your training? You see, strength isn't born in comfort. It's forged in adversity. Just like a sword must go through fire to become strong, we too must face our own fires. But here's the beautiful thing about human beings. We have a choice in how we view our struggles. Consider the butterfly. If you've ever witnessed a butterfly emerging from its cocoon, you'll know it's not an easy process. It's a struggle, a battle that can last hours. And here's something fascinating. If you try to help the butterfly by cutting open the cocoon thinking you're being kind, you're actually condemning it to death. Because it's the very struggle of breaking free that pushes fluid into its wings, making them strong enough for flight. How often do we wish for someone to come and cut open our cocoon, to make our struggles easier, to clear the path ahead of us? But what if, just like the butterfly, we need these struggles to develop our strength? Look around you. Every person in this room has a story of struggle. Every success story you've ever heard is built on a foundation of challenges overcome. The question isn't whether you'll face struggles, you will. The question is, what will you allow those struggles to make of you? Some people let their struggles break them. They become bitter, resentful, always looking for someone or something to blame. Others let their struggles build them. They use each challenge as a stepping stone, each setback as a setup for a comeback, steel for a moment. Do you know how it's made? Iron ore must be heated to extremely high temperatures, hammered and shaped repeatedly. Without this intense process, it remains just ore, useful, but not nearly as strong or valuable as it could be. Your struggles are like that heat, that hammering. They're transforming you into something stronger, more resilient, more valuable. But here's the key. You must embrace the process. You must understand that your struggles aren't happening to you, they're happening for you. Every time you face a challenge and push through, you're building mental and emotional muscles that will serve you for the rest of your life. Remember the last time you faced a major setback. Remember how it felt, how overwhelming it seemed. Now look back at that moment from where you stand today. You survived, didn't you? Not only did you survive, but you learned something valuable. Maybe you learned about your own resilience, or about who your true friends are, or about what really matters in life. That's the thing about struggles. They have a way of cutting through the noise and showing us what's essential. They strip away our pretenses and reveal our true character. They show us who we really are, and more importantly, who we can become. There's a story about 2 brothers who grew up in a troubled home with an alcoholic father. Years later, one brother became a successful businessman known for his integrity and family values. The other followed in his father's footsteps, struggling with addiction and broken relationships. When asked why they turned out so differently, they gave the same answer. How could I turn out any other way given my childhood? Same struggles, different choices, same fire, different outcomes. One let the fire destroy him, the other let it refine him. The struggles weren't the deciding factor. Their response to those struggles was what made the difference. What struggles are you facing right now? Take a moment to think about them. Really think about them, not just the surface challenges, but the deeper struggles that keep you up at night. The ones that make you question yourself, your choices, your abilities. Now, imagine viewing those struggles through a different lens. Instead of seeing them as obstacles blocking your path, see them as opportunities strengthening your character. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? How is this preparing me for something greater? We often pray for strength, for courage, for resilience. But strength doesn't come from wishful thinking or comfortable circumstances. It comes from pushing against resistance. It comes from facing our fears and doing what needs to be done anyway. It comes from getting up one more time than we fall. Think of your mind and spirit like a muscle. When you work out at the gym, you're essentially damaging your muscles. But it's through this very process of damage and repair that your muscles grow stronger. Your struggles work the same way. They may feel like they're breaking you down, but if you persist, if you maintain the right mindset, they're actually building you up. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you had never faced any challenges? If everything had always been easy? You might think it would be wonderful, but would it? Would you be as strong as you are now? Would you have developed the wisdom you now possess? Would you truly appreciate the good times if you'd never experienced the bad? The truth is, our struggles shape us in ways that comfort never could. They teach us empathy for others who are suffering. They give us the wisdom to help those who are walking paths we've already traveled. They show us what we're capable of, and usually we're capable of far more than we think. The struggles you've already overcome in your life, each one of them has contributed to who you are today. Each one has taught you something valuable if you were willing to learn the lesson. Each one has made you stronger, whether you realized it at the time or not. And here's something else to consider. Your struggles don't just make you stronger, they make you more human. They connect you to the universal human experience. They give you stories to share, wisdom to pass on, strength to lend to others when they need it most. So let me ask you, are you going to let your struggles define you, or are you going to let them refine you? Are you going to use them as excuses for why you can't succeed, or as reasons why you must succeed? The choice is yours, and it's a choice you make every single day. There's a story of a young woman who worked as a waitress in a small diner. Every day she served coffee to businessmen in suits, to families celebrating special occasions, to couples on their first dates. And every day she felt the sting of her unfulfilled dreams. She had wanted to be a writer, but life had other plans. Bills needed to be paid and dreams had to wait. But here's what she did. She started carrying a small notebook in her apron pocket. Between serving plates and refilling coffee cups, she would scribble down conversations she overheard. Descriptions of people who caught her eye, fragments of stories that floated through her mind. Her feet ached from double shifts, her hands were often burned from hot plates, but her spirit was alive with purpose. For 6 years she worked those double shifts. For 6 years she filled notebook after notebook. For 6 years she faced the whispers of doubt, the well-meaning advice to be realistic, the crushing weight of exhaustion. But she kept writing. And today, those notebooks have turned into best-selling novels that touch millions of hearts. Was it the comfort of her circumstances that led to her success? No. It was the very struggle itself. The long hours, the aching feet, the constant interaction with different kinds of people that gave her the material, the perspective, and the determination to succeed. Our struggles often come disguised as inconveniences, as obstacles, as reasons why we can't achieve our dreams. But what if we're looking at them all wrong? What if these very struggles are giving us exactly what we need to succeed? A time when everything in your life was easy. When was the last time you truly grew during those comfortable periods? Growth doesn't happen when we're comfortable. It happens when we're stretched, challenged, pushed beyond our current capabilities. Consider the story of a small family-owned hardware store. For decades, they had served their community, building relationships with every nail sold, every tool rented. Then a large chain store opened nearby. Their sales dropped dramatically. Their longtime customers started drifting away, attracted by lower prices and bigger selections. It seemed like the end was inevitable. But instead of giving up, they did something remarkable. They started focusing on what the big store couldn't offer: personalized service, expert advice, and deep community connections. They began offering workshops on weekends, teaching people how to handle basic home repairs. They remembered customers' names, their projects, their challenges. They turned their small size, what seemed like a weakness, into their greatest strength. And today, that store isn't just surviving, it's thriving. Why? Because their struggle forced them to innovate, to adapt, to become better than they ever would have been without that challenge. This is what I mean when I say your struggles will make you strong. It's not just about enduring hardship. It's about allowing that hardship to transform you into something greater than you are today. Water for a moment. When water meets an obstacle, it doesn't stop flowing. It finds another way. It goes around, over, or under. If necessary, it will even carve through solid rock, creating new paths where none existed before. Water doesn't see obstacles as permanent barriers. It sees them as temporary challenges to be overcome. Can you be like water? Can you learn to flow around your obstacles? Can you let your struggles carve new paths in your life? There was a man who lost his job after 20 years with the same company. He was in his 40s, with a family to support and a mortgage to pay. For months he searched for similar positions, but the world had changed and his skills weren't in demand anymore. His savings dwindled and his confidence along with it. But one day, while helping his neighbor fix a leaking pipe, he had a realization. Throughout his career, he had always been the person others came to for help with household repairs. He enjoyed it, was good at it, and there was always demand for such services. Within a year, he had started his own handyman business. Within 3 years, he was employing other workers. What seemed like the end of his career became the beginning of something even better. His struggle didn't break him. It revealed a path he might never have taken otherwise. The loss of his job wasn't the end of his story. It was merely the end of a chapter. How many times have you faced a struggle that initially seemed like a disaster, only to later realize it was actually a blessing in disguise? How many times has a closed door led you to an open window you wouldn't have noticed otherwise? The problem is, we often can't see these blessings while we're in the midst of our struggles. When we're in the dark valley, it's hard to believe there's a mountaintop ahead. That's why faith is so crucial. Not just religious faith, but faith in yourself, faith in the process, faith that your struggles have meaning and purpose. Remember the story of the eagle. An eagle's nest is not a comfortable place. It's built with thorns and sharp sticks, lined with softer materials, but still fundamentally uncomfortable. When the eaglets are old enough to fly, the mother eagle begins removing the soft lining, leaving the thorns exposed. The discomfort of sitting on those thorns is what finally drives the young eagles to attempt their first flight. Your struggles are like those thorns in the nest. They may be uncomfortable, they're meant to be uncomfortable, but that discomfort is pushing you towards something greater. It's preparing you for flight. But here's the crucial part. The eaglet still has to spread its wings. The discomfort alone isn't enough. There must be action. The same is true for you. Your struggles create the conditions for growth, but you must choose to grow. You must choose to learn. You must choose to spread your wings and fly. The things you're struggling with right now. What if they're not actually problems to be solved, but opportunities to be embraced? What if they're not obstacles in your path, but the path itself? There's a farmer who lost his entire crop to drought one year. Instead of giving up, he spent that year studying water conservation techniques. He dug wells, built irrigation systems, learned about drought-resistant crops. The next year, when his neighbors faced the same drought conditions, his farm thrived. His struggle forced him to become not just a better farmer, but a wiser one. That's the thing about struggles. They don't just make us stronger, they make us smarter. They force us to think differently, to solve problems we didn't even know existed, to develop skills we didn't know we needed. Look at any great achievement in human history, and you'll find struggle behind it. Look at any person you admire, and you'll find challenges they had to overcome. Look at your own life, at your own achievements, and you'll see that your proudest moments probably came after your hardest times. Why? Because struggle is the chisel that reveals the masterpiece within the marble. It's the fire that refines the gold. It's the resistance that builds the muscle. Without it, we remain untested, unproven, and ultimately unfulfilled. So let me ask you again, what are you struggling with right now? And more importantly, what is that struggle trying to teach you? What strength is it trying to build in you? What wisdom is it trying to impart? Remember, the struggle itself isn't your enemy. Resistance isn't your enemy. Challenge isn't your enemy. The only real enemy is the voice inside that tells you to give up, that tells you it's too hard, that tells you you're not strong enough. Let me tell you about a small bakery in the heart of a working-class neighborhood. Every morning the owner would arrive before dawn, mixing dough by hand because she couldn't afford a commercial mixer. Her hands would ache, her back would strain, but she persisted. Some days she barely made enough to keep the lights on, but she had a dream, and more importantly, she had bread. That bread wasn't just food. It was hope shaped by calloused hands, determination baked into every loaf. When customers would come in, they didn't just smell fresh bread, they smelled perseverance. They tasted not just butter and flour, but dedication and dreams. One winter, her old oven broke down. She couldn't afford to replace it, and banks wouldn't give her a loan. For 2 weeks, she baked in her home oven, making countless trips back and forth in the pre-dawn darkness, carrying warm loaves in wooden boxes to keep them from freezing. Her customers saw her struggle, and something remarkable happened. A local mechanic offered to look at her commercial oven. He worked on it after hours, charging only for parts. A retired carpenter built her new shelving for free. A regular customer who worked at the newspaper wrote a story about her dedication. The community rallied around her not because of her success, but because of her struggle, because they saw in her determination a reflection of their own dreams and challenges. Today, that bakery has 3 locations. But here's what's interesting. She still comes in before dawn sometimes to mix dough by hand, even though she now has modern equipment. It reminds me, she says, of what built this place, not machines, but determination, not ease, but struggle. Our struggles don't just make us stronger, they make us authentic. They give us depth, character, and most importantly, they give us our story. And in a world that often feels superficial and disconnected, authenticity is priceless. The people who have influenced your life the most, are they the ones who've had everything handed to them, or are they the ones who've faced challenges, overcome obstacles, and emerged stronger? We're drawn to these people because their struggles make them real, make them relatable, make them human. There was a teacher who worked in an underfunded school. The building was old, resources were scarce, and many of his students came from challenging backgrounds. He could have seen these conditions as insurmountable obstacles. Instead, he saw them as opportunities to be creative. When there weren't enough textbooks, he created his own teaching materials. When students couldn't afford school supplies, he started a community donation program. When the classroom was too hot in summer and too cold in winter, he turned it into lessons about perseverance and adaptation. Years later, when he was offered a position at a prestigious private school with better pay and modern facilities, he turned it down. These struggles, he said, have made me a better teacher than any comfortable classroom ever could. That's another truth about struggles. They don't just make us stronger. They make us better at what we do. They force us to innovate, to think creatively, to find solutions where none seem to exist. Consider the sculptor working with marble. Every chip, every cut, every mistake is part of the process. The struggle with the resistant stone is what creates the masterpiece. Without that resistance, without that struggle, there would be no art. Your life is like that piece of marble, and your struggles are the chisel. Every challenge, every setback, every moment of doubt is shaping you, revealing the masterpiece within. But here's the crucial point. You are both the sculptor and the marble. You get to decide how these struggles will shape you. There's a story of 2 stone cutters who were asked what they were doing. The first said, "I'm cutting stone. It's hard, thankless work." The second said, "I'm building a cathedral." Same task, same struggles, but entirely different perspectives. One saw only the hardship, the other saw the purpose behind it. What cathedral are you building with your struggles? What greater purpose are they serving in your life? I knew a woman who lost everything in a fire. Her home, her possessions, her sense of security. For months she lived with devastating loss. But slowly, something began to change. She realized that losing everything had freed her from the weight of possessions she didn't need, relationships that weren't serving her, and fears that had held her back. "The fire," she said, "burned away everything that wasn't essential. It showed me what I was capable of surviving. And once you know you can survive losing everything, you're no longer afraid of taking risks to achieve your dreams." That's the paradox of struggle. It can take things from us, but it also gives us something invaluable: perspective, strength, wisdom, and most importantly, freedom from fear. That for a moment. What fears are holding you back? What if the very struggles you're facing right now are trying to free you from those fears? There was a small manufacturing company that had been doing things the same way for 30 years. When new regulations threatened to shut them down, it seemed like the end. But instead of giving up, they were forced to reinvent their entire production process. It was painful, expensive, and filled with uncertainty. But something unexpected happened. The new processes they developed didn't just meet regulations. They were more efficient, produced less waste, and ultimately led to higher profits. Their struggle didn't just save their business, it made it better than ever before. That's how struggle works. It forces us to question our assumptions, to break out of our comfort zones, to discover capabilities we didn't know we had. It's like the grain of sand in an oyster that creates a pearl. Without that irritant, without that struggle, there would be no beauty. Look at nature. The trees that grow in the harshest conditions, that face the strongest winds, develop the strongest roots. The muscles that face the most resistance grow the strongest. The metals that undergo the most intense heat become the most durable. Why would we expect our personal growth to be any different? Why would we expect to develop strength without resistance, wisdom without challenges, resilience without struggles? There's a tendency in our world to avoid struggle, to seek the path of least resistance. We want instant success, immediate results, overnight achievements. But anything worth having requires struggle. Anything worth achieving demands effort. Anything worth becoming requires transformation, and transformation is never comfortable. A time when you achieved something significant in your life, was it easy? Or did it require struggle, sacrifice, persistence? Did you become stronger because everything went smoothly, or because you had to overcome obstacles? The answer is obvious, isn't it? Yet how often do we pray for an easy path? How often do we wish our struggles would disappear? How often do we fail to recognize that these very struggles are the source of our potential strength? Your struggles are not punishments. They're not obstacles to your success. They are the way to your success. They're not blocking your path. They are your path. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, more resilient. Every setback is a setup for a comeback. Every moment of resistance is a chance to build your strength. Have you ever watched a master craftsman at work? There's something mesmerizing about their hands as they move with practiced precision, about the way they handle their tools with such confident familiarity. But if you ask them about their journey, they'll tell you about the countless mistakes they made, about the years of struggle before those movements became second nature. They'll show you scars from missed chisel strikes, tell you stories about projects that went wrong, about moments of frustration and self-doubt. But here's what's fascinating. They don't tell these stories with regret. They tell them with pride because they understand something fundamental about life. Mastery comes through struggle. There was a violin maker who spent 7 years as an apprentice. 7 years of sanding wood until his fingers bled, of making mistakes that cost precious materials, of starting over again and again. When asked why he didn't quit during those difficult years, he said something profound. I realized that my struggles weren't separate from my craft. They were my craft. Every mistake taught me something about wood, about tools, about myself. Today, his violins are sought after by musicians worldwide. But he'll tell you that the true masterpiece isn't the violin, it's the maker. The struggles shaped not just his skills, but his character, his patience, his understanding of excellence. Think about your own life. What skills have you mastered? What knowledge have you gained? Wasn't there struggle involved in every significant achievement? Didn't every meaningful advancement come through some form of resistance? Consider the story of a small family restaurant. The owners worked 16-hour days, their children did homework in empty booths, and some nights they wondered if they'd make enough to pay the bills. But in those long hours, something beautiful was happening. The mother perfected her recipes through countless adjustments. The father learned to read his customers' moods and needs. The children absorbed lessons about work ethic and perseverance that no classroom could teach. 30 years later, that restaurant is an institution in their town. But what's remarkable isn't just their success, it's what their struggle created beyond the business itself. The children who did homework in those booths grew up understanding the value of hard work. The parents developed a wisdom about business and life that they now share with others. Their struggle created not just a successful restaurant, but a legacy of strength and wisdom. That's another truth about struggles. They don't just impact us, they impact generations. How we handle our struggles today creates ripples that affect others tomorrow. When we allow our struggles to make us stronger, we're not just building our own strength. We're showing others what's possible. There was a group of women who worked in a textile factory. The conditions were challenging, the pay was low, and the work was physically demanding. But instead of accepting these conditions, they began meeting after their shifts to discuss ways to improve their situation. They faced resistance, ridicule, even threats. But they persisted. Eventually, their efforts led to better working conditions. not just in their factory, but in factories across the region. Their personal struggle became a catalyst for widespread change. Today, thousands of workers benefit from the standards they helped establish. Their struggle made them strong, and their strength made others stronger. This is how positive change often happens, not through comfort, but through struggle. Not through accepting what is, but through fighting for what could be. Every major advancement in human history, every step forward in civil rights, every improvement in working conditions, all came through struggle. But here's what's crucial to understand. These changes didn't happen because the struggles were easy. They happened because people chose to let their struggles strengthen them, rather than break them. They chose to see their challenges not as barriers, but as opportunities for transformation. A garden. When you plant a seed, it must struggle through the soil to reach the sunlight. If you remove that struggle by digging up the seed to help it, you kill the plant. The very act of pushing through the soil is what makes the plant strong enough to survive. Your struggles are like that soil. They may feel like they're holding you down, holding you back, but they're actually providing the resistance you need to grow stronger. Every time you push against them, you develop new strength. Every time you refuse to give up, you develop new resilience. There was a man who started a delivery service with just one truck. Every morning he would make his deliveries, and every evening he would repair and maintain the truck himself because he couldn't afford a mechanic. His hands would be covered in grease, his back would ache, and his mind would be exhausted from calculating routes and managing schedules. But in those long hours under the truck, he was learning invaluable lessons about mechanics. While planning his routes, he was developing crucial knowledge about logistics. Through dealing with customers' complaints and concerns, he was mastering the art of service. His struggles weren't just challenges to overcome, they were his education. Today, his company operates a fleet of trucks, but he still keeps a mechanic's toolbox in his office. It reminds me, he says, that every problem is an opportunity to learn. Every struggle is a chance to grow stronger. That's what I want you to understand. Your struggles aren't just tests of your strength. They're builders of your strength. They're not just measuring what you're capable of. They're expanding what you're capable of. The times in your life when you've grown the most, wasn't it during periods of challenge? Wasn't it when you were forced out of your comfort zone? Wasn't it when you had to dig deep and find strength you didn't know you had? There was a public speaker who had a severe stutter as a child. Every word was a struggle, every sentence a battle. But instead of letting this challenge defeat him, he turned it into his motivation. He practiced for hours every day, reading aloud, working with speech therapists, facing his fear of speaking in public. The interesting part isn't just that he overcame his stutter. It's that his struggle with speech made him more attentive to the power of words, more sensitive to the nuances of communication, more empathetic to others facing similar challenges. His struggle didn't just make him a capable speaker, it made him an exceptional one. This is what happens when we embrace our struggles. They don't just make us stronger in the areas where we struggle. They develop qualities that serve us in unexpected ways. The patience we learn through one challenge helps us in another. The resilience we develop facing one obstacle strengthens us for future ones. Consider the pearl again. An oyster creates a pearl as a response to an irritant, a source of struggle. But the pearl it creates is not just a solution to its problem. It's something beautiful, valuable, transformative. Your response to struggle can be the same way. You can create something beautiful from your challenges, something valuable from your obstacles, something transformative from your trials. But this only happens when you choose to see your struggles as opportunities rather than obstacles. When you choose to let them strengthen you rather than break you. When you choose to use them as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. There's a story about a young artist who worked as a janitor in an art gallery. Every night, as he cleaned the floors and emptied trash bins, he would study the paintings on the walls. He couldn't afford art school, but he had something perhaps more valuable, the determination to learn, to grow, to create. During his breaks, he would sketch what he saw. After his shift, he would stay late, practicing techniques he had observed in the paintings. His hands were rough from cleaning chemicals, but they were learning the delicate touch needed for fine brushwork. His back ached from mopping floors, but he stood for hours at his easel working on his craft. The gallery owner noticed his dedication. Instead of discouraging him or telling him to focus on his cleaning duties, she began leaving art books where he would find them during his rounds. Sometimes she would leave notes about specific paintings, their techniques, their history, their meaning. What this young man didn't realize was that his struggle wasn't just teaching him about art, it was teaching him about life. The discipline of showing up every day, the patience of learning slowly over time, the humility of doing honest work while pursuing a dream. These were lessons that would serve him far beyond the canvas. Today, his paintings hang in galleries across the country, but he still keeps his old janitor's uniform, not as a reminder of hard times, but as a testament to the power of struggle in shaping who we become. That's what I've been trying to help you understand throughout our time together. Your struggles aren't just obstacles to overcome, they're opportunities to become. They're not just tests of your character, they're builders of your character. A block of granite. It starts as a rough, shapeless mass. But through the struggle with chisel and hammer, through the pain of being cut and shaped, it becomes something beautiful, something meaningful, something that can inspire others. You are that granite. Your struggles are the chisel and hammer. The question isn't whether you will face struggles, you will. The question is what you will allow those struggles to make of you. Will you let them make you bitter, or will you let them make you better? Will you let them break you down, or will you let them build you up? Will you let them defeat you, or will you let them develop you? The choice is yours. It's a choice you make not once, but every day, every hour, every minute. It's a choice you make with every challenge you face, every obstacle you encounter, every setback you experience. Remember the bakery owner who mixed dough by hand because she couldn't afford a mixer? Remember the violin maker who spent 7 years learning his craft? Remember the factory workers who fought for better conditions? Remember the teacher who turned limited resources into lessons about perseverance? These aren't just stories, they're mirrors. They reflect back to us our own potential, our own capacity for growth through struggle. They show us what's possible when we choose to let our struggles strengthen us, rather than stop us. But here's what's crucial to understand. Strength doesn't come from the struggle itself. It comes from our response to the struggle. It comes from the decisions we make when facing adversity. It comes from the meaning we choose to give our challenges. Consider the metaphor of a blacksmith forging a sword. The metal must go through intense heat, must endure repeated hammering, must face extreme pressure. But it's not the heat or the hammering or the pressure alone that creates the sword. It's the skilled hand of the blacksmith directing these forces. You are both the metal and the blacksmith in your life. Your struggles are the heat, the hammer, and the pressure. But you get to decide how these forces will shape you. You get to choose what you will become through this forging process. And here's something else to consider. Your struggles don't just make you stronger for yourself. They make you stronger for others. Every challenge you overcome, every obstacle you conquer, every setback you survive becomes a light for someone else's path. The people in your life who have inspired you, chances are they inspired you not because their lives were easy, but because they faced difficulties with courage. They inspired you not because they never failed, but because they kept going despite their failures. You have the same power. Your struggles, when faced with courage and determination, become more than just personal challenges. They become beacons of hope for others. Your strength becomes their inspiration. Your resilience becomes their possibility. There was a woman who started a support group for others facing the same illness she had battled. My struggle, she said, gave me the strength to help others find their strength. Her personal challenge became a source of community healing. Her individual struggle created collective strength. This is the ultimate transformation of struggle, when we allow it not just to make us stronger, but to make us better able to strengthen others. When we use our challenges not just as stepping stones for our own growth, but as bridges to help others cross their difficult waters. So let me ask you one final time, what struggles are you facing right now? What challenges seem overwhelming? What obstacles appear insurmountable? Now look at them again. Look at them not as barriers to your success, but as builders of your strength. Look at them not as roadblocks, but as raw materials for your transformation. Look at them not as punishment, but as preparation, because that's what they are. Preparation for something greater than you can currently imagine. Every struggle you face is strengthening muscles you'll need later. Every challenge you encounter is developing skills you'll use in the future. Every setback you experience is teaching you lessons that will serve you and others in ways you can't yet see. Your struggles will make you strong. Not might make you strong, will make you strong. It's a promise, but it's also a choice. A choice to persist when you want to quit. A choice to learn when you want to blame. A choice to grow when you want to give up. Make that choice. Choose to let your struggles strengthen you. Choose to let your challenges change you. Choose to let your obstacles optimize you. Because in the end, it's not about what happens to you. It's about what you become through what happens to you. And remember, the struggle you're in today is developing the strength you'll need tomorrow. Your current challenge is creating your future capability. Your present pain is producing your future power. So stand tall in your struggles. Face your challenges with courage. Embrace your obstacles with determination. Because these aren't just difficulties to endure, they're opportunities to become stronger than you ever dreamed possible. Your struggles will make you strong, but only if you let them. Only if you choose to see them as teachers rather than tormentors. Only if you decide to let them build you rather than break you. The choice is yours. The time is now. The strength is within you, waiting to be forged in the fire of your struggles, waiting to be shaped by the hammer of your challenges, waiting to be revealed through the persistence of your spirit. Choose strength, choose growth, choose transformation. Your struggles aren't the end of your story. They're the beginning of your strength. Let them make you strong. Let them make you unstoppable. Let them make you into the person you were always meant to become.